morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, December 16th, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Patrick Murphy. Patrick, of course, a action-packed media day at Ohio State yesterday. I want to start off talking about Isaiah Prince. You know, a lot of fans have wondered about him. A lot of people in the media have wondered about him and whether or not there might be some changes or what they might do at right tackle. And Urban Meyer said Prince is just working his butt off. He said the last 2 weeks he's worked as hard as any player he's ever coached. And he said really, the strategy here is improve the player. It's not, because when they try and chip with a tight end or chip with the running back, that takes away from some of the stuff that they want to do as an offense. They're not going to put Brandon Bowen in there. Just your thoughts on what Coach Meyer had to say about Isaiah Prince.
Yeah, it's certainly positive if you're a Buckeye fan. The kid is talented. There's no doubt about that. I think what you're seeing here is he's come in last year, didn't play right away, which is pretty typical for an offensive lineman, aside from Michael Jordan this year. And, he maybe for whatever reason hasn't, developed into, the technique, I guess, that you need. He's probably been bigger and just more talented than everybody his entire life. And, I think footwork has probably been his biggest issue, from people I've talked to that really know offensive linemen. And so I think he's still learning. I don't think there's any question that people you talk to around the program think he's going to be a very good talent. But it's his first year actually playing college football, and he's kind of had to make adjustments, and it hasn't been a smooth transition as it has for maybe some other guys. But that doesn't mean it will be, and it's good to hear that he's really putting in the time and effort to get this fixed, because they're going to need him against Clemson.
I know a lot of our readers and listeners have wondered if Malcolm Pridgeon might be able to help at right tackle this year. He's been medically cleared. He's practicing, got his black stripe off. Of course, the JUCO transfer in the Buckeyes 2016 class. But Urban Meyer cleared that up yesterday. He said that he really likes Malcolm Pridgeon. He thinks he's going to be a very good player, but won't be playing until next year. Just your thoughts on Malcolm Pridgeon.
Yeah, I'm actually just about to post a story on that when we get done here. He's a guy that I think, also has a bright future. But I don't think anyone should be surprised. A knee injury of any sort would be difficult to come back during the season unless it's pretty minor. But from what we'd all heard, starting at the beginning of the year, it didn't sound like that. That there sounded like maybe a chance that he'd be able to. But, having dealt with knee issues myself, it would, especially with an offensive line, even though you wear braces and whatnot, the movement you do laterally is a big thing. Taking those steps back, it's all very knee oriented. And so, you don't want to risk this kid, even though there's a chance to win a national championship here, not only his next 2 years at Ohio State, but a potential NFL future and things like that. If you destroy a knee worse than whatever he did in fall camp, you could be setting him up for failure as opposed to helping him for the future. And I think that they're confident that they can get the right stuff out of Isaiah.
Urban Meyer had an interesting comment. He was refreshingly honest, as usual. I say refreshingly, not compared just to him, but just to coaches in general. He's always just refreshingly honest. And he was asked about the passing game yesterday, and he admitted, he said, it hasn't been good enough. I thought it would be better. We need to improve. He even threw something in like, we're really going to improve this off season. I know fans jumped on that way. You're not going to improve during the bowl. Like, no, he mentioned they're trying to improve right now. But he said they're really in the off season. They're really going to make a concerted effort to improve because he thought they would be much better in the passing game. Just kind of translate those comments a little bit. What did you make out of those comments?
Yeah, it sounded a lot to me like what he said after the Fiesta Bowl last year, which was, we're going to be balanced. We're going to, we want to be 250, which at some points this year they have been. Now that's not to say that they won't. I think that, he probably expected that, and different circumstances have hurt the passing game this year. Whether you believe that JT Barrett has actually regressed, whether you think that, the Big Ten's gotten better, whether the weather hasn't helped, all these things, the receivers not developing maybe as quickly as everyone thought. I mean, it's been a big storm of things, and I think Urban's disappointed. This is a guy that he likes in JT Barrett, and the receivers that he thought would be good players and potentially will be. And so, I think that will be a big focus this off season. It probably looked good. he knew that they would be going against some talented defensive backs, and we've seen that in spring and things like that. So, I think no matter who comes back, who's here, I think that will be a focus this spring, and it'll be nice to see as we go through spring ball and then into the fall camp next year how that looks and kind of who's filling in the puzzle pieces there in terms of who's returning and who's kind of winning spots, even if some other guys return.
Speaking of throwing the ball well, from talking to the players yesterday, it sounds like Dwayne Haskins is throwing the ball pretty well in practice. He is the scout team quarterback, meaning he is playing the role of one Deshaun Watson. And according to his teammates, he's playing it very well. You're talking to some of the defensive players. They say he's throwing the ball very well, giving them a good look. And so just a couple things. I think this is obviously bodes well for Ohio State's future. They have Joe Burrow, who I think is going to be excellent. They have Dwayne Haskins. Also Tate Martell coming in and Emory Jones. It's pretty amazing. But it's good for the future knowing Dwayne Haskins is coming along well, and it's good for the current team that they're getting, a good scout team quarterback to prepare them for Deshaun Watson, one of the best players in college football.
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday while we were talking to Tim Beck. You hear these stories about quarterbacks that when they're first starting, this guy played so-and-so in bowl practice. Even, Troy Smith back in the day, when they were getting ready to play Miami and he was playing Wilson Gahey, I believe it was. Even Jalen Hurts for Alabama, who played Deshaun Watson last year when he enrolled early. So, it sounds like Dwayne Haskins, locally is setting up to be that next guy. When he gets his shot, assuming he continues to develop, is up in the air. As you said, there's going to be a lot of talent in that quarterback room. But Tim Beck, like him or not, the guy's worked with a lot of quarterbacks, and he seemed to like him a lot. And then some of the other guys, too. Noah Brown was another one that I heard while I was making my rounds that had some good things to say, and I believe Jerome Baker was the other one I talked to that said, they were impressed with what Dwayne's done. And it's no surprise. The way Urban talked about him heading into the season was, one of the best prospects he's seen throwing the ball at that point in their career. So, to hear that he's doing well, especially now that he's getting a little bit more, I believe he got to do a lot of second team reps while Joe Burrow was doing finals. So, it's good to hear. It's not surprising. And I think it helps set up, a pretty epic quarterback battle whenever JT Barrett is no longer a Buckeye.
I want to get your take on Urban Meyer's comments about Torrance Gibson. Of course, earlier this week it broke that Torrance Gibson had signed a letter of intent with the junior college, Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College, but then Torrance Gibson told some reporters, no, I'm not leaving. Urban Meyer was asked about it, and he said nothing's been finalized. He called it an unfortunate situation. Didn't say much more than that, but what did you make? What did you kind of make of Coach Meyer's comments there?
Yeah, to me it sounded like he was just kind of disappointed in how this has all gone. Obviously, Torrance is a guy he recruited and a guy I think he's high on and, wanted the chance to coach, wanted the chance to do things, whether it was at a quarterback or a wide receiver. I think he expected to have him here, have him playing, and be a weapon one way or the other. And what's ended up happening is, he came in, he switched positions, he was hurt. Then the suspension by the program, which Urban obviously told us he was not in agreement with. So, now that this might be happening, sounds like it's happening, Urban probably doesn't want to add any fuel to the fire, but, it certainly didn't sound like a coach who sounds like, no, he's going to be back. And he just kind of sounded let down that it hasn't worked out because I think he had a lot of thoughts in mind for what this kid might do here at Ohio State, and now it looks like he might be doing it, at a junior college and then potentially pulling a Cam Newton and, going somewhere else and whether it's quarterback or wide receiver or whatever, he might end up at another D1 program and, Urban's already seen that story once.
Yeah, no kidding. Great stuff as always out of Patrick Murphy. Thank you very much, Patrick, and thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. Hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.